Spring ball is officially underway and the first week of practice is in the books. What did we learn from those first few days of practice? And how is the team looking right out of the gate? Eric Nahlin, owner of Inside Texas, is here to give us the scoop on the first week of spring practice. And if you like the inside info in this video, then you already know where to go for daily updates. Subscribe to InsideTexas.com today. Link in the description. It's early, but we already have some good data points coming in about this team's potential. Without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back, Eric. And first, we were expecting Maalik Murphy to compete for that number 2 spot at quarterback, but he's currently not practicing. So what's the latest update there?
Yeah, Maalik Murphy was a bit curious that he didn't participate this week. We keep hearing it's foot or ankle, but not serious. You know, maybe the coaches just wanted to give him this week off with the understanding that they had next week off too. So that's 2 weeks for him to get fully healthy. Obviously, he was good on scout team last year. We didn't hear about him missing any passing sessions. He looked good in some passing sessions this offseason. So we were a bit surprised by it. You know, he needs to get back healthy and he needs to get out there as soon as possible because, you know, every day he's not on the field, Arch Manning gets a little bit of step catching up to him.
And even though it's only been a week, we're already seeing that development we accrued during the offseason. So which position groups are looking the most dominant in practice right now?
Yeah, you know, I think the first thing I should talk about is, you know, even though there was only 3 practices, we had a lot of eyes on practice. They had 3 viewing sessions. They allowed each practice to have a viewing session. So we had at least 3 media guys at practice on Monday and Friday and about 5 on Wednesday. So even though we had limited time, we had eyes on every aspect of the program. And the first thing that stood out is just the physical development. The players just look a lot better. I think that gets said a little bit too frequently. This is the one time that I saw it and it was really jarring. You know, the first note I took all season, all practice was Dre Bledsoe. Looks like he's finally growing into an interior defensive lineman. 5 minutes later, he's over there practicing with the interior defensive line. So we didn't even know that he was actually going to make that move for 100%. We had expected him more at edge. But a lot of guys look great. Now, you know, I think the 2 biggest strengths are where the 2 body types stood out to me the most, and that was interior defensive line. Obviously, Byron Murphy's a brick house. Alfred Collins has added some more muscle. They just look really good up front, especially with the addition of Dre Bledsoe. T'Vondre Sweat, of course, is a giant. He's moving well, too. And then the defensive backs, specifically corner and star, those are NFL body types that they're stacking up one after another over there. You know, guys that were considered small, like Gavin Holmes, I don't consider him small. He's muscled up, might not weigh a lot because he's not carrying much fat, but he's not a small guy. Even true freshman Malik Muhammad has clearly put on some muscle in a short time period. So the 2 strengths of the team that I had coming in were the 2 ones that actually stood out to me when I first got to practice, and that's interior defensive line and quarterbacks.
And then we have some potential senior breakout candidates. Which guys could surprise us as they go into that prove-it year?
Yeah, it's tough to get through to fans on potential breakouts because they just are so used to what they've seen, and that player is just always going to be that player that they saw the last time they saw him. But players do improve, and we've seen more rapid improvement under this staff than we've seen in a very long time. You'd have to go, you know, way back into the halcyon days of Mack Brown when he had the program running 100% to where we saw this sort of development. So I don't think fans should be nearly surprised when they hear about players getting better. That's what the coaches are known for, and that's what they just showed this past season. 3 guys that we've heard as breakouts is Jordan Whittington, that's not going to surprise anybody, but he was mentioned because he only had 1 touchdown last season. I think he's going to be known more for his athleticism this upcoming season than probably he's given credit for in the past. He got known for doing a lot of dirty work, but this year I think he's going to become more of a playmaker. And that was an opinion I had coming into it. And then, you know, that's what my source was telling me on Saturday. They expect that. Keaton Crawford is one that fans have been waiting for a very long time. He's, you know, one of the best athletes on the team. He looks like an NFL player. He looks better than a lot of NFL players physically and athletically. But, you know, safety is a cerebral position. It's taken him a little bit of time to adjust from corner to safety. But the light, I don't know if the light's fully on, but it's definitely flickering. He's doing a lot of little things behind the scenes that lets people give them optimism that he's going to take the next step. Forced some fumbles this past week, which means he's in the right place. Got his hands on a lot of footballs on Friday. He's making tackles. He's just playing with a lot more confidence and a lot more understanding. And then there's David Benda. You know, I know a lot of fans are not going to share my optimism there, but I'm not saying he's going to be an all-conference player or replace DeMarvion Overshown 1-for-1. I think he's going to set a good floor for the position. There's not going to be a giant cliff that they fall off in production, I don't believe. But at the same time, while he is playing better, he had a very good offseason. We wrote that even before camp started. That's carrying through. While he's having a good offseason, he's got a lot of competition at that position.
And that's the perfect lead-in for our most interesting position battle of the year. That will linebacker spot is up for grabs. So what are you hearing about how that battle is progressing now that we're in practice?
Yeah, linebacker, everybody knows Jalen Ford has that locked up. I saw him. I had not seen him in person in a long time. I saw him at the press availability on Wednesday, and that is a big dude. He is put together, but not in a big way that constricts his movement. He's not muscle bound, but he's muscular. He's all of 6'2.5", 6'3". He's just a big dude. That guy's got a very bright future. I think he might end up being a first round pick, maybe second round pick next year. But next to him, that's the big question: who replaces Overshown? Obviously, you've got Benda Faring there. Anthony Hill is there. Maurice Blackwell. Leona Lafau is new to the program and has a very bright future, but they're already trying him at Mike. So we have to figure him. This is going to be a developmental year. He'll have this offseason, next season, and another offseason, and then he's going to be your starter. They've been confident about that for a long time. I thought they might try him at will just because there's an opening there, but they're just going to start his development right away at his future position. So that leaves Hill, Benda, and Blackwell. Blackwell, he's got the athleticism. He's a little undersized. He is physical by nature. And we saw the light start to come on for him last year when he was playing Sam. Benda, we just mentioned, but then there's Hill, and the coaches are clearly trying to get Hill acclimated as quickly as possible. Those three are splitting reps pretty evenly. That's not to say that Hill is even with Benda. He's not. He doesn't have nearly the experience. He's not nearly as physically developed, even though he's a hell of an athlete. But he's going to play a lot, and they're trying to get him up to speed. They're not wasting any time. They're not letting him learn by watching. They're having him learn by doing.
And fans know we've struggled at the edge position, but now that the guys are actually out there on the field, how is that group shaping up, and what's the depth chart looking like?
Yeah, I wrote a piece on Edge on Friday, I believe, and then this past Monday wrote in the Inside Scoop. I covered it quite a bit. I know it's one of the biggest topics for the offseason because, they lacked pass rush from the Edge last season. Barron Sorrell had a quality year. He's going to take another step. They got virtually zero pass rush, or at least it didn't show up in the statistics with Ovia Gufa last year. All that said, I'm not concerned about Edge. I don't think that they're going to have some 12-sack a year guy this next season, but I'm not concerned. They've got enough complementary parts. They've got enough size now. They've got enough strength, and they've just got enough bodies to throw at it. Sorrell's going to start at Jack. They moved Jure Bledsoe. They have him going inside and out. I mean, if they're tinkering with him inside, that tells you that they feel pretty confident about Edge. PK's the defensive coordinator. He calls the shots. He decides who plays where, and he's willing to give up one of his players to help Bo Davis out. So that tells you that he feels pretty confident about Edge. They've got Chris Ross doing the same thing as Bledsoe. He's inside and out, and they might make that swap permanent. I could see that happening. Bledsoe's about 275 right now. He just looks like more of an interior guy. Ross is having trouble putting on weight. He might have been a little more maxed out than people realized coming out of high school. And he does bend well enough for the edge. That's a big part of it. So it's not just that he's going to go over there and be a run stopper. Colton Vosick was mentioned as having a better ball get off than previously thought. I think everybody's waiting to see what he can do. He's definitely physically more developed than a lot of players, a lot of freshmen. He's mentally more developed than a lot of freshmen. I saw him running down on special teams a couple times, and for being 6'5", 245 or 6'4", 245, whatever he is, he moved quite well. On the other side, Justice Finkley, I think he's going to hold down that spot, and it's going to make the will linebacker's job a whole lot easier. And then behind Finkley, you have Burke. He was a former teammate of Vosick's. I think he's actually known for his football character. He's a physical guy. He's not the most physical guy when it comes to strength, but he wants to be physical. So he's got that mindset. His number one job right now is to get strong. Last year he got to campus and just put on as much weight as he can. He could. This time he's trying to actually get strong. But I think that's where a pass rush can potentially come from. He's got the length. It's a short path to the quarterback when you have his sort of stride. And then I guess I shouldn't forget Jamon Tapp. He's starting to understand the game a lot better. Got all the physical tools and the athleticism, but technique's the big issue, especially with him bouncing back and forth and playing Jack. You've got to be a man at that Jack position because you face a lot of double teams to the field side. I don't know how it's all going to shake out. I have a pretty good idea who's going to play. I don't know who's going to be the best producers, but they've just got enough bodies and players to work with and talent to work with that, they're not going to be as good as they're going to be next year, but they're going to be better than they were last year.
And your sources also specifically singled out DeAndre Moore in practice. And of course, we have Johntay Cook, who came in looking ready to go as well. But why are they excited about Moore after they've seen him on the field?
Yeah, when it comes to freshmen, I think we've talked about Johntay Cook a whole lot, and deservedly so. He's come in, and I think he's really lived up to the billing. He's been polished, he's been fast, he's making tough catches. He looks like $1 million. But DeAndre Moore is not to be forgotten. He kind of came in the class late, so we didn't have a big buildup talking about him for too long. It's going to Louisville. Texas moved in. The one thing that he was initially called out for by the sources was his speed. It was the first thing that was told by me, and that was good to hear because he had a couple plays on his tape where he looked extremely fast. That's showing up on tape. He's also pretty polished. He played a lot of football at a high level out in California. I think he's ideally suited to play the slot. I think he's going to be more of a vertical player than Whittington will be this season. How Sark likes to throw it deep. So I think people need to be on notice for DeAndre Moore having a bright future. And this is why, Brendan Thompson running track. This is guys like DeAndre Moore are going to step up and take advantage of the extra snaps.
And when we were talking previously in our video we made before spring ball, we discussed where we thought the offensive linemen would end up. But now that we're seeing it live, how is that group performing?
Offensive line and defensive line are a good reminder, especially in the interior, of the value of physical development. On the defensive side, they have it. So those guys have had the advantage of being in the program quite a bit. And that's showing up quite often in practice when they're going up against the interior guys that don't quite have that much time in the program. So even though that DJ Campbell looks the part and moves the part, he's not quite ready there physically. Probably needs to lose a little weight. Hayden Connor's just not quite the man child that T'Vondre Sweat is. Jake Major's never been the biggest guy. Neta Umeozulu definitely looks the part and is definitely coming on. And there's a good chance he's going to play a whole lot next year. But even when he goes up against T'Vondre Sweat, he's getting put on skates. T'Vondre Sweat was even working over Cam Williams this past week. It was told to me that Sweat was the best player on the field, but you have to remember there's zero-sum component to that. So if he's playing great, it could mean that somebody else is not playing quite as well. When I hear about interior defensive line, I think about the offensive line and where they're at. I'm thinking right now, offensive line is probably my biggest concern going into next season, but that's not to say that it's a great concern. Definitely need a little more time, and it's apparent when they lock horns versus the older defensive linemen.
How are the tackles looking against the edges?
So on the bookend, it's the other side of it. The edges are actually getting better, but they're really not. They're not having nearly as much success against the edges as the interior guys are, and that's to be expected. You got Kelvin Banks, who's as solid as it gets. He's just a good player, first round draft pick, and then you have Christian Jones, who I think is going to end up being a middle round draft pick next season. So that's the flip side of it. The edges are not quite as ready to go, even though Barron Sorrell is taking the next step. He's just not quite as naturally talented as Kelvin Banks. Finkley doesn't quite have the length to grapple with either of them. That said, Finkley and Sorrell are better players than they were a year ago.
The team took spring break off, but we're about to be right back into the thick of it. So please let the viewers know where they can stay up to date with all of the team coverage.
Yeah, come find us at Inside Texas. We've got a loaded roster just like Texas does. We cover every aspect of the team. We're getting ready to cover March Madness like crazy. Spring practice is just kicking off. Right now you can get 4 months for only $10. And that'll kind of guide you through the season and give you an idea whether or not Inside Texas is for you. I encourage you to check us out. It's a good introductory price. Sports aside, it's an entertaining place to be. There's a lot of good people there. You make a lot of friends. I've made a lot of friends from that site.
And that's a wrap on Eric Nahlin. Head over to Inside Texas and sign up today. Thanks for hanging out. Watch some more of my videos here. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share if you want to support quality Texas content. As always, hook 'em.